I'm Jen. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to make a video about frustration and what it's showing me that I'm doing and what I need to do different, because I find like when you recognize your emotions, it can help guide you on where you're doing the same thing over and over again and how to do different. So what I recognize is there are times when I've convinced myself I've done something different, but I'm doing the same thing. So right now I'm in my health, my physical health. That's what I'm focused on, my physical health. Now, I'm learning other ways where I have to support my mental health as well. And it's actually kind of tied into my physical health. So like, if I want to do more cardio, like I find it hard to take a deep breath right now, right? Because everything's so tight. And so I'm trying to practice more deep breathing. I'm also trying to lower my cortisol because I feel like my levels are high. So I want to go get checked for that because I don't know for sure, but I definitely feel like I'm struggling with insulin resistance, high cortisol, due to the stress that I've experienced, like the PTSD due to trauma. And so I'm just trying to get back into my body after I've been in my head so long. And during that time, I was on the couch and I was so tired, and I'm still tired. So I'm just trying to figure out, why am I so tired? Because like when you try to start, like when you're on bed rest, you're not exerting any energy, right? And so I have to figure out why I'm tired from there. But then when I want to start building up my muscles again, so I can start getting back into exercising, because that makes me feel strong, then you're using up more. If you're already in a deficit of nutrients and vitamins and minerals and things like that, then like you're going to deplete yourself even further. So I'm trying to figure out how to do this. And I have, because I feel like I don't have a lot of time. I feel like I don't have a time. That doesn't mean I don't have a lot of time, but I do feel like I want to get, and this is a pattern of mine, is feeling behind in life. And it's because I've had to learn a lot of things on my own. I didn't have a lot of time being taught things. I had to self-teach things a lot. I was left on my own a lot to figure things out on my own. And as an adult, I'd have to do that too. So like you can imagine like how frustrating it is when you have to learn everything by yourself and not have parents there to help you through the things. And when the parents are there, it's almost like instead of helping you, they're like, you have to deal with their triggers and their lack of emotional balancing, and then you also have to deal with their emotional manipulations and things like that, and then they also have the emotional unavailability. So like, can you imagine as a child, like you just don't have anyone to go to, you don't have support. It's very competitive between the siblings, and so it's a lot of codependent toxic connections, that not only I had to figure that out first in life, but then I had to, when you start creating boundaries, you're going to get people that kick back. And then when you start moving away from the herd mentality and they sense movement within you, you're also going to get targeted as well. And so this is all exhausting because like you've already had to do everything. Like you've been carrying the emotional baggage of your parents and your family. You're required to keep the secrets because that's an interesting thing I came about today. I found an environment that gives you food, right? That helps you out, but it makes me feel like I can't share the toxic aspects about that environment because I received food from them. And I thought, what a fucked up concept. Like I can't share what I saw in that environment because I received food. Like that just made me feel like exactly what I felt growing up, is that because I'm being fed, because my parents are giving me shelter, that where did that idea come from? Because I give you food and shelter, you can't speak out on things. Because you used to do this too, you can't speak out on these things. Like it's such a weird idea. And so like there's all these belief systems that I've been working on trying to, and you got to think like this is all like energy that is being shifted and moved, and it's exhausting when you're healing because not only do you have to stand up for your own, like you got to start calling out the abuse. You have to get away from it because you've grown up in it and you're like enmeshed in it. And like, this is supposed to be your support system. So this is your family. These are people that are meant to love you unconditionally. But what I found, I was only loved conditionally. As long as I show up and I shut up, I'm seen and not heard. I have to back the abuse. And when I stopped doing that, what I'm not receiving is like any sort of understanding or like acknowledgement, and I'm just getting a lot of excuses, and I'm getting even more abuse, and I'm still being lied to. Like they're still lying. You know, I'm not perfect. I've fucked up a lot. There's a lot of things I haven't, like, that I'm not proud of that I've done. But you can't stay there, you know, and you got to learn to grow and do different. And so you can't just sit there and just say, like, you know what, I'm a different person than I was years ago. That's the point. We're meant to grow. And so these people are angry because you're changing and they stay the same. And you're expected to tolerate their abuse because they're not ready to change. And so what can happen is, once you've moved out of this system, it also mirrors in your workplaces, in your relationships, in your communities. And so what happens is, now you have to, like, where before you did everything on your own, you're still doing everything on your own. Like the kid's dad, he abandoned us because he didn't like when I was calling him out. So when I held him accountable, he didn't like that. So he would punish me and the kids by disappearing. He would punish us with withholding finances. You know, and he would be drinking and smoking and have money, but I would be having to find, like, I'm like trying, like, I didn't get to go out. I didn't get to socialize. I didn't have money for that. I didn't have money for a babysitter. And so, like, I would be begging family members, like, you know, and I would be required to, like, send food with them, even though when, like, I would watch their kid, like, I'm not asking for food. It's such a weird, it felt like there's so many rules and conditions put on me in order to receive support. And if people didn't believe, like, in what I was doing, it meant they didn't believe in me. And so they weren't supporting me, right? It's almost like, well, you're doing this, so I don't believe in that, so I can't support you. But it's like, well, if you know me, I'm a good person, I have good intentions, and so just let me learn my way. And why can't you support me while I learn my way? You know? And, like, you can still be there for somebody. And you can still, like, you don't have to believe in what they're doing. I was, you know, at the time I was learning how to read oracle cards. I don't do tarot cards because I don't believe in telling the future, because I don't believe the future is going to change unless you do something to change it. I think a lot of these people are still stuck in their same, like, high school sort of childhood mentality and lack of maturity because they refuse to grow. And it can be scary. It's super scary. It's really hard when I try to grow, especially because the things that I'm learning were meant to be learned as a child with guidance, compassion, grace, support, and nurturing and cherishing. And someone saying, it's okay, you got this. You know what? It's taking a little bit longer. That's okay. You're so quick at this. It makes sense that this takes a little bit longer. You know, give yourself some time. You know, I didn't receive that message ever. And so those are things, when I start getting frustrated, it's because I'm recognizing that I've never done this before. No one's helped me with this before, and I'm having to do it all on my own. Now, as an adult with the responsibilities of trying to pay my bills, trying to heal my heart, and trying to raise kids, and I have 2 fur babies that I got, and it's challenging because I grow resentful towards the dogs because I'm like, I'm so frustrated because things are taking so long, but they're also taking so long because what's happening in the meantime is people are coming at me and for no reason. When they see, the thing is, when people see you grow, you become like a moving target to those around you who have grown way too comfortable in their lifestyle of a codependent nature, right? And they're miserable. This is like people who have stayed married to the first person that they met, and they're too, you know, they don't want to do the work to become independent. And so they hate, instead of doing the work, they hate on you. They target you. They throw rocks at you. They come into your lane. And so that's what I've been dealing with. Not only trying to, like, do better and become better and grow up because I was immature in aspects. I don't know how to make money on my own. It's challenging because I also have been, oh, this is getting a little emotional. The people, like, people try to keep you close because they're their own codependency. So what they do is they try to belittle you. They try to create self-doubt within you so you're not going anywhere. I've had my family members do this. I've had partners do this, and I've had coworkers do this. I've had bosses do this. Like, I have had a lifetime of people who are trying to, I've had people in the EI, in Ontario Works, and community kitchens. I have had people all across the board try to do this. I have neighbors doing this. I have people who just don't want to be responsible for their own actions, and are totally like in their own mind where they don't think of anybody else. Like it's so all about them and none about you. And in a community, in a society, we're meant to like consider other people. You can't just walk around and do whatever you want, whatever you like. Dropping litter, that affects all of us. You know, you can't just walk around naked and think it's I'm confident. Get over it. No, that's like there's children. You know, it's inappropriate. There's a time and place. And so there are things where I've just experienced like a heavy hand from these individuals where not only was I like in the beginning, like I was healing and I was actually showing them like this is what I've learned. And I could see where they needed some help because they were struggling in ways that I had struggled. And so I thought I would, reach out and say like, hey, and they would be open to it. They would like it. But what they were open to was the attention and the kindness and the nurturing that I was giving them that I had never been given from them, you know? And I would give them chance after chance after chance. But I didn't receive those chances. Not that I deserved them, because like when I would call them out on their bullshit, they would get angry and then isolate me and ignore me. And I was being punished for speaking up against them, against the abuse that they were creating with me. Like they weren't willing to be there for me. Not to say that it's all abusive, but the relationships were definitely out of balance. And I was giving way more than I was receiving. And the excuses, they would play on my emotions. They would play on my guilt. And so now, like I'm 46 trying to figure this out when these are things that we should have been learning at the ages of between 0 to 5. And then you build on those. So instead of healthy development, I'm building on dysfunction and neglect, and then I have my own kids. They're 20 something now, but at the time, like it's hard to watch because like I did things for all the wrong reasons, and then having to watch your kids heal things that you didn't heal. Like it's so hard. Now I can see some change has happened and that's great, but it still doesn't like remove what I did as a parent. And it's even worse because like I was looking for help. As a single mom, I was looking for help and support for my family. And all they did was make me beg for breadcrumbs. Like my mom, I had to pay her to babysit my kids. I don't think she was working at the time, so I felt that was a little bit odd. But at the same time, I'm like, I decided to have kids, so I'm going to pay you to babysit them, right? But then even trying to get her to spend time, like I can't, like she came to the hospital when my kids were born, but like she never held them. And I think my kid was a year old before she actually came over to our apartment, before she saw my son. Like she wouldn't come, she was not excited about, and I understand she had to raise the majority of her family when her mom left. So I can understand the idea of being burnt out because she had to raise her own, like her parent, like her siblings. She had to help with that, but then she also had to raise and do the majority of the work in the house because my dad would not do it, right? He didn't think he had to do it. He thought he just had to show up at his job and come home and that was it. And I mean, he would try to do some renos and stuff around the house. He would do that kind of stuff, but like it was totally imbalanced. Not to mention like he was a tornado, like a hurricane of emotion. We had to walk on eggshells in that household. That's what I mean. We were not allowed to be heard or seen unless we were called upon from him. And when that happened, it was usually like, we're in the middle of something and it was so like, where are you kids? Where are you? Get down here. Like it was very like that. And if it wasn't like that, it was like, him getting us to feel sorry for him or us having to take care of him because, he had to go to work, which these are all things that I can understand and I can empathize with. But where is it happening on the other side? It wasn't like he couldn't empathize for my mom when she was burnt out and she had a meltdown. He couldn't empathize with her for that. He couldn't sit back and see how she was doing all the cooking, all the cleaning, and it wasn't even getting done properly because she was exhausted. She had 3 kids. It was me and my twin sister. My older brother was 3 years old and she was responsible for all the kids all the time. When we go out to church, which was considered like a social event, it was dad who would go off and talk to everybody and she was meant to wrangle the kids. So she never really got that social time. She didn't get her hobbies. He had hobbies. He had like trains and things, and he would go out and he would go bowling. Like he had all the hobbies. He had all the clubs. She didn't have any source of support. And while I can, I feel for her, for that. But at the same time, she would never get out of that cycle, and she would just, after they separated, she would just find another version of him, a very immature man who doesn't cook, doesn't clean, and it's almost like, it was almost like a version of my brother. You know, actually, my brother likes to cook and clean, but it was like, there was a time when it was just my mom and my brother living together, and he would do nothing around the house. And she was fine with that because she felt needed. So it's weird because, like, even when you try to say, like, you can see some of these people are like, you're being used and abused. When you try to show it to them and then you try to get them out of the situation, they'll go right back to it. And that's a problem for me too, because it's like, this man was very abusive towards us. And so you kept us in that scenario in order for your comfort and not the safety of us. And you know what? There were times when I make excuses because I'm like, you know what? I understand as a single mom, it was challenging. It took me a couple goes to get away from the kid's dad. One time, I think he left, and then the other time I kicked him out. But it was because the only time we went back together is because I was scared about what was happening with him and the kids at his house by himself, because he has a temper and he was cruel to my son. And he wasn't even kind to my daughter. I think my daughter was his favorite, but he still wasn't kind to her. He wasn't treating her. He was very militant. He was very, and I find I was that way too. I picked up that from my dad, and I would listen to the kid's dad about that. And I really regret that. Like, there are times when I was told, like, by the kid's dad, that just let them cry, because, like, if you coddle them every time, but there's something about, like, they're still young. Babies are still young. They still need to be comforted. You know, and I feel like that was something I regret doing. It's like leaving my son, I think he was like probably 8 months old, and like having him cry and us being in that room and just leaving him. That broke my heart. And I understand like aspects of tough love, but that's not meant for babies. You know, that's not meant for babies. Like, you're meant to wean them off. There's got to be a different way of doing it. So those are things, like, I listened to the wrong people for a lot of my life. And that's just because that's what the environment I was born into. And it's difficult because you learn to recognize, like, I really fucked up. And so the frustration also comes, like, when you start recognizing that you're on the wrong path and you're doing things the wrong way in life, you have to come back from that, and you have to unlearn, relearn. And then you also have to, like, you know, I made a lot of mistakes with my money. I did a lot of things because I was insecure in myself, but also at the hands of other people. They were cruel. And so, like, I made a lot of mistakes in that way. And so, like, you have to, that's your karma. You have to come, no one else is going to fix that but you. And that's another thing. I feel like a lot of these people have bad karma, and they're not willing to be accountable for it. And they don't want to feel like they want to fast track. They don't want to go back the way they came and fix the shit they made a mess with, right? It's like somebody, you know, spilling the milk and leaving it for someone else to clean up. They don't want to clean up their own mess. And so these people like fast energy, and they like to take energy from you. And so that's where I had to start creating boundaries with people. And then I had to start, like, I already was doing everything on my own and for them. And so I had to learn also how to, like, moderate, because I was rushing because I felt behind. And so what I would do is I'd rush into things for the wrong reasons, and because of, like, an emotional place, and because of a lack energy. And so that's where the frustration comes from, because, like, once you start to see your mistakes, and once you start to see people for their true colors, and you start moving away from them, they don't take it very well, and you become a target. And then also, so like I said, you're trying to do all these things at once when you're just meant to do them as a child with, like, all the right things in place for support. And so that the frustration for me says, I need to give myself time to learn this. I also have to pay attention. I'll experience frustration when I fall back into an old pattern, because it feels easier than learning. So an example of this would be, my house has fallen apart because of the financial abuse I've been experiencing from my own decisions that I've made, the bad choices that I've made, and from having to do everything on my own, or feeling like I have, and so prioritizing the wrong things. And so what can happen is, when I get a space and time to rest, rest used to be really uncomfortable for me. And so I'd rush right back into the rat race. And so I had to learn how to hold my line and to actually rest. And so there's like, I'm going to make a video about this, but there's like, in the way I healed and how I, like, what I did when I did it. But one of the things is I'm having to learn because my system is overworked. My nerves are shot. I believe I have high cortisol, and I also believe I'm suffering from insulin resistance. And you don't have to be like, you don't, they talk about being overweight around the waistline. That's not a guarantee. You can have insulin resistance and still be quite slender for your weight. Because it's like that fat, what is it? The fatty liver. It actually is fat that it can accumulate like around your organs and things like that, which is actually very dangerous, and it's not necessarily on the exterior of your body. I don't know that all, like if you want to look that up, look it up for yourself. Like I don't have all the information just based on like, you know, what I've learned on myself. So then, so what I'll do is like recently I've recognized like, okay, I've been given time to get my body back. And what that means is to work out, to make my body strong, to get my energy back, right? So I was working on getting my energy back because I would try to work out and then I recognized that my muscles were way too painful after I worked out. Like it was taking a lot longer for me to recover. So I'm like, you know what? I think I need to look at my magnesium levels, my potassium. I have to look at my diet. I have to look at my electrolytes because like if you're depleted in those, like they only talk about electrolytes when it comes to like playing sports. But what they don't realize is if you've been under stress, if you aren't absorbing your nutrients, then you're going to be deficient, right? So it doesn't matter how many magnesium pills and things you're taking. If you're not absorbing them and your body's not able to use them, it's pointless, right? So I had to get to a point where I'm like, okay, if my body is hurting this much after that, like, yes, I have to learn how to do it less, but I also have to look at, are my nutrients higher? So I started adding more than what, and I also started looking at, and it's hard because to stay consistent is challenging because you're doing all these things at once. So that's why I had to really focus just on my health. And I'll tell you like exactly how I went off again on the wrong path. So I have to focus only at this time on getting my vitamins right, consuming my electrolytes. So I got the sodium, so I got the chloride in my stomach to help break down, you know, to create that acid to break down the food. But then I'm realizing that you also just lose that acidity in your stomach from what I've read from it's Dr. Ryan. I think it's Dr. Ryan Taylor on YouTube. Very helpful YouTube channel, along with Dr. Berg as well. But like, so you need to assist the digestion. So if you've experienced trauma and you're in stress, high levels of stress, like these things are going to be out of balance in your body. So it's already going to be hard. So your body needs some assistance. So apple cider vinegar before meals and or with meals to help break down these items so you can actually absorb them in the system. But if you're like, you got to make sure that your system is, your digestive tract is on point as well. For me, I had to, when I had bloating, I went and got like a endo and a colonoscopy done because I definitely felt something was off, but nothing showed up on the test, which is so fucked up because I felt so bloaty and so tired. And I'd already fixed my iron levels because that was something I experienced after coming out of that Frudenberg knock environment and dealing with all the management and all that sexual harassment and mean girls and mean guys. And so I'm like, the thing is, you don't know you're depleted until you are. And I didn't recognize like certain things that I was eating was also depleting. So like you could be taking electrolytes at the time, but if you're drinking coffee and eating sugar, that's like, you're not getting anywhere. Right? And so these are things that while I'm stuck in the mud, I'm learning. So it's helpful because I'm used to racing with an answer and then just stamping it, that's the reason. But it's like, well, no, like, let's ask some more questions. That might not be it. And so it is challenging because a lot of these issues are like gray issues that it's hard to get answers of. And especially if you don't have access to healthcare, it's really challenging. And especially if you're already exhausted, the last thing you want to go do is wait in a walk-in clinic for like 2 to 3 hours to be seen. Well, I have had good experiences with that recently, so I can't complain too much about that. But it does, when you're already tired, the last thing you want to go do is sit to have a 15-minute conversation with a doctor. Now, and I don't find the online ones where you pay, I don't like those ones because I have never received, they say that you can use an email, like contact OHIP through an email and get the money back. I've never gotten that. No one answers me. I've not received my OHIP back from when I've paid for a doctor. So that's not, I would no longer use those online doctors. Unless you need a doctor's note and you don't expect to get reimbursed from it from the government. That would be the only reason. So anyway, so I'm working on my health. I'm working on building my energy levels back. And so like, of course, like, it's hard to watch your house fall apart around you. And so like part of the movement, I had decided March was movement March month, right? So I just like, I'm just gonna, because I've been on the couch for so long, and I'm just like, I just need to get my body to move to get it used to moving again. That was the idea. And of course, what happened was I started off that way. But then I started recognizing, I'm like, well, if I'm going to move, I might as well start some of these renos, because they're like small things to put the house back together. Because to be honest, I don't know if I'm going to sell my house or not. So I'm like, you know what? That's two birds, one stone. And usually I find that really helpful, and it can be, but if you don't know when to stop, and you know, like my house is my safe space. So like when I see it unfinished, it really bothers me. And I've had to work on that, to not let it affect me. Like, and it is helpful because it's like a muscle, it's a mind muscle that you use. Like, it's helped me when I don't let things bug me like that. It helps me when other things, it helps prevent other things from bugging me, right? So it is kind of like a muscle that you use, and you can flex, by, you know, not letting certain things bug you, and acknowledging like that's not a priority right now. Even though I want my house to be put together and finished, it's just not happening right now, and I have to be okay with that. And that's also where the frustration comes in too, and where I'll have an emotional purge with that, because when that happens, and it just reminds me of like all the shit that I've been through, but what other people have put me through. And so like I think that's part of the process to purge those emotions, because I am frustrated, and I do hate those people in that time. I do hate the people who came for me. I do hate them. And it's just temporary. I'll be okay and I'll get out of it, and then I'll realize, you know what? I am benefiting from what I've experienced, because now I don't have to deal with those people anymore. And now they're not in my life. And now I can prevent other people like that coming into my life. So there is a blessing attached to it, but sometimes you don't see the blessing, and sometimes we just have to like release that pressure of, you know, like we're human. This is hard. And the fact that I've had to experience all this abuse at the hands of people that claim to love me, and that I really gave to, even if there's like coworkers that it wasn't that deep, I was still kind to them. And yes, they're still human. And so like that purge has to come up, because I'm carrying that around and I don't know it. And so there's things like that. So the frustration is actually helpful. It's not something to move away from. It's something to move through. And so it helps me recognize when I'm doing too much and receiving too little. And what that looks like is, okay, so like, there are times when, and like I said, I still think this is helpful, because like I'm getting more into my body, and I was moving like these crazy wooden doors to get the doors back on, because I just find it's hard with the dogs. Like when they start barking, they're so loud. So I'm trying to like put the doors back on. So when I make videos, it's less abrasive, right? And then also I'd like to have the doors on, so like they don't have to be in their crates, that they can be in, like they can have a bedroom to themselves, look out the window, and well, that won't be good for barking maybe, but I'm trying to train them not to do that. But so when I do this, like I'll feel there's something, when I've overdone it, it makes me feel helpless, because all of a sudden I did something where I felt strong, I overdid it, and then next day I'm tired, and I don't feel the pain quite yet always, but I know like I don't feel energetic. I feel tired, you know. I know it sounds odd, and it might be too much information, but that's when I know. Like when I was eating dairy, like even when I have kefir, even when I have Greek yogurt, I'm like, this is good for me. Like this is supposed to be beneficial. It's got protein. It's good for the gut. And then like I recognize that I get really tired after I eat it, and then I recognize that it's made me constipated. And so like I can't have that anymore. I can't have dairy. Dairy and me are not friends. So it's not like a once in a while thing. I used to have ice cream once in a while, and it would have the sugar and the dairy. And so I'm like, I know if I have ice cream, it's gonna slow things down, which then makes me tired. I don't know if other people experience tiredness from that. I don't know what the connection is, but that's what I get. That's how it works for me. So I can no longer make excuses for having dairy. I just can't have it. And so there are times when ever I go too much, too big, too fast, I'm going to do something that is going to slow me down in turn. And so I have to get better with saying, okay, I'm not doing Tae Bo. I'm going to do like, cause Tae Bo is like an hour of like intense workout. But if I am going to do Tae Bo, then I have to I have to yoga, and I don't want to do the yoga, but I want to do the Tai Bo, you know? So if I'm going to do that Tai Bo that day, I have to do the yoga, and then I also have to walk, because those are things that help your muscles. And then I got to make sure I'm taking my magnesium, and then I also have to make sure I get a good night's sleep. And that means turning off my phone early, and that means putting on a breathe strip, and that means, you know, maybe spraying some lavender, like making the effort to get a good sleep instead of just, you know, treating it so casually. And so that's also how I'll do another video about my, like, how I remove addictive substances. And so the frustration is showing me I'm out of calibration. I'm doing something too slow. I'm doing something too fast. I've overdone it, or I haven't done enough. And so it's not to say that you're not going to get there, because it can, you're going to freak out a little bit. You're going to feel a little freaked out. And it's like, because your things aren't happening like you thought they should, and they weren't showing up like you think they should, but you've never done this before. You don't know how to do this, you know, whatever you're moving towards, that goal. And so it's scary because you're doing it by yourself. And part of this too does stem back to, like, I do feel like part of these emotions that are coming up are also like a grieving process that you didn't get to grieve. Like, you didn't get to cry when you didn't get to cry when you were scared as a child. You weren't allowed. That made your parents feel uncomfortable. They didn't want to listen to it. They weren't compassionate or empathic towards it, for whatever. Sometimes the parents are stressed. Like, if you have two parents that are incompatible and there's constant tension and fighting and stress, and they're unhappy in their work lives, they're unhappy in their living lives, like the relationships and things, like, that's going to trickle down to the kids. And so, and some people are just miserable. They've decided that they're just going to be miserable and take it out on other people. And so, like, unfortunately, when you are raised in that environment, like, it's high stress for whatever the reasons. It's highly emotional. So, like, your emotions can make them feel some sort of way. That's not your responsibility. You know, you're allowed to cry as a child, but, like, I wasn't allowed to cry as a child. That made my parents uncomfortable. You know, it felt like a burden. It felt like an extra burden on their plate when they're already, like, they don't even know how to manage their own shit. They don't even know, like, they're like adults raising kids, but they shouldn't even have kids because they haven't even finished growing themselves. And I did the same thing, you know? So it's challenging because, like, I think some of this stuff comes up as, like, in order to release it. So I give myself grace in all these, like, ebb and flows of learning, these trial and errors, because I'm learning, but I'm also expressing emotions that I never had permission to express as a child, or even in the past. Because even as a single mom, like, I did not have time to myself ever, you know? And when I had time to myself, I was watching TV. That's still not time. That's not rest. That's not joy. That's not play. That's not fun. That's literally numbing myself out from the world that I'm living in, the experience that I'm having. And so that's not rest and play. And so, like, you know, there's so many times when I wanted to cry, but I had to remain covered and strong because I have kids. And it's not to say they did see me crying, because I was experiencing depression. There was a man that I worked with, his name was Todd, and he was extremely emotionally abusive. He cheated on me often. He was flirting with women all the time. He chose everybody but me often, but pretended like he had a soft spot for me, like we were close, and we were not. He did not treat me like a friend at all. I gave so much to that man, and he gave me trauma. And honestly, like, I benefit from it, because that is like a side. I see him as a side of my father that my father would show to everybody else, you know, and I would see him treat other people like that in public, perfect strangers. And so can you imagine the confusion of getting, like, see, that's the confusion. You can see your father being kind and friendly and have that face when he chooses to. But when you're home, all you get is that ugly, crazy, unkind, and cruel face. So there's a choice there. Do you know how confusing that is for a child to feel like you're always getting that cruel, cold version, explosive aversion, impatient version of your father, but out in public, perfect strangers at the grocery store who don't want one damn thing to do about him and are trying to get away from him, but he can't see. Their eyes are glazing over while he tells them his life story. Like, he required so much, too much supply from other people because he couldn't give it to himself. And meanwhile, he has children right in front of his face that are dying for his attention. And yet all he can focus on is impressing strangers. And I had to recognize a part of that I was doing. Part of these renos, like I wanted my house to be a certain way. I did want it for me and my family, because we grew up with like renos all the time, and like I was embarrassed of our home, but it was because it was also dirty, and it just felt, and I'm not even saying that's the right way to feel, embarrassed of our home, you know, but that's something I felt like I had to impress. I was like trying to finish my house, and I'm like, I don't even want anyone in my house. Like I wanted, and I'm now like looking to do it for me and my kids. Like I did want it for my kids. I did want them to have a nice, warm, cozy house, because like that was our safety zone. But at the same time, I was doing it for all the wrong reasons, and so I was spending more time on renos than with my kids. And then even at one time where I thought I needed a partner, because that's what we're told, is that you need a partner. You know, they needed a father. But if I would have just left the man alone, if I would have just been okay on my own, I would have done so much better as a mother, as a parent to my children. I would have done them more service, as opposed to running after men who were intentionally deceiving me, intentionally playing games, like intentionally. And see, that's challenging because they were friendly. He was lying to my face, but you do see people out there who seem to be in happy relationships. So it's like, I believe that it was possible. I just didn't know how to go about it. And so I really fucked up in that way. And so there's things where it's challenging, because like you kind of get these like, so recently I was like following in that path where I thought, okay, I can do two birds, one stone, but the two birds, one stone can be helpful, but it can hinder. And so I had to realize, like, I've done too much. I was doing okay for a bit. I was able to, before when I did renos, there's no way I could clean my house, like do dishes, and there's no way I was eating healthy. You know, this time around, I could do some renos. I was eating healthy. I didn't go and eat the junk food. I didn't eat the ice cream. I didn't have to live off coffee while I was doing the renos. And I was doing dishes at least 1 to 2 days. You know, usually once a day. Like I like to do them when I get up in the morning, because that's just where I have the most energy to do them. And now I'm getting better at even doing them during the same day. And so if you know, you know. And if people are watching this and they can't understand why I can't get a sink of dishes done, then you just haven't experienced that level of trauma where it shuts you down. It shuts you down. The smallest bit of work will shut me down. And so I'm trying to pull myself out of that sort of freeze. I guess I would explain it like a freeze, burnout place. And I'm trying to warm myself up in the way that I'm trying to move and balance my life out, so there is more play and joy. But like, so for me, that's what I say is my home is part of my, like, I want to decorate my home. I want to put it together. That makes me feel good. But at the same time, I have to be aware, overly aware of where it falls from. I enjoy doing this to now it feels like too much, you know? And so what I'm doing now is looking at, okay, so I need to, what I need to do is to spread it out a little bit more. Maybe I'm doing renos only on the weekend. Like I'm going to pick a day where I work on something and recognize that this is going to take time. And then I also have to, what I did before was I tried to get the renos done quickly. When I quit my job, I had a lump sum of money. So I'm like, I'll just pay someone else to do this, but I didn't plan it. And so I ran short of funds. And so things are half-assed, right? And then I also paid the wrong person to do the job. And so now I think I have to go back and redo some of the things, the projects, which, you know what, that's hard. That's hard to acknowledge, like, I fucked up. There's some things I did because I didn't have the full information, and now I fucked up. And you have to acknowledge that. It is what it is. Like, I have to live with that now. And where I already feel like I don't have enough money, now I feel like it's going to take me forever, because now I have to undo and redo, you know? And now that kind of follows along too with what I've been doing with my healing and my development, is like learning how to manage my own emotions, learning how to recognize safe and unsafe people, learning how to rest when all I know how to do is work. You know, these are all things that I've had to do along the way. And now you have to kind of start incorporating other things. And you, the whole time, there are times when I can allow myself, I'll give myself, I say I can afford my bills for this period of time. So I'm not going to stress. I'm just going to relax. But then there's a constant ebb, like that push, that press. I'm constantly feeling pressed because I don't have a consistent form of income yet. And so that's where the frustration comes, is because whenever I approach that sort of like bridge of like my previous funds and looking for a new way to pay my bills, because I'm not ready to go back into that. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go to an abusive environment. I don't want to unbrick everything that I've done, you know? And so that's where the frustration hits me, is when I start to panic because I feel like I'm running out of time. And I have to look at where I have been taken care of. I don't like the way that it's been done. Um, but I am learning faster. I am learning sooner. And the thing is, I'm learning to like do these things without those crutches of the substances that that used to affect my health negatively. So I am getting better, but at the same time, like sometimes better doesn't feel enough, because you're like, okay, like I need this. I'm going to be needing this like at this point. And like I said, I'm pressed because everything has felt like work up to this point since I've been born. Let's be honest. Like when you're dealing with these people, like I enjoy my kids, don't get me wrong, but when someone's fucking with your money, that makes it really hard to enjoy your kids when you're so stressed out about money. And it's like so disgusting to know that that's the human that helped you create those babies, that they're willing to destroy and try to destroy their life because they're mad at you. Like that's such a disgusting, immature, gross. I don't have really a word for that. And so these are all things while I'm trying to develop myself, that I'm also grieving along the way. I'm having to release this pain, and then also at the same time recognize where this pain comes from my past, because it's a cycle that I keep creating, right? It's a pattern in me. It came from my childhood home. It came from my parents. And you know, the hardest thing is too, is like when you start healing and changing and you try to communicate that to other family members about how they're hurting you, and they're more comfortable ignoring you and punishing you with their isolation, as opposed to trying to be better and trying to learn, how did I hurt you, instead of just jumping to the excuses. Like I get a sting after when I learn. Like I experience, like in this frustration, when I experience it, I just had one that I went through. It's like I'm on the couch, I'm grieving, I'm heavy, I'm having to process, like, well, I'm angry because I thought that we are going to be getting this during this time, you know? And when you realize like you're not, it was just a means to get you up and going, that can be painful, because I've been waiting for so long, and I've been working so hard. You know, like when you've been working so hard and receiving so little, that takes a toll on you. You know, that's why I don't really like to use too many labels like burnout and depression and things like that, because it's just like when you've had so many failures, it makes it harder and harder to get back up again. And especially because I'm trying to get from one level to another, and I just want to get the fuck away from like these people and this environment, in the way that I need to get up into a clear area of life, to where I am no longer the prey, susceptible to the predators. And I think that's the challenging part of this, is feeling like I'm so sick of these fuckers messing with my life, and now I see them for who they are, so I'm not concerned. But at the same time, it's still gross behavior, and it's a challenge all in itself. And so there's a lot of like, while this frustration is purging, there's a lot of like grieving and recognizing like, okay, I did it again. I fell back into that pattern of like, I want my house together. I want to do my renos. And I'm not saying no to the renos. It's not saying no. It's just like, I want to get that shit done and over with. I never want to do a fucking reno in my life again, you know? And so like, if I were to focus more on my career and making money in that way, the chances of me making money that way, because along this way, I've developed a lot of skill set that I can make money with. And so I have to lead with that, as opposed to with my old past of feeling like I don't have enough money, and so I have to do everything myself. And so for me, it's more about me supporting myself in the right paths, the right areas of life, so that I can be successful, and so then I can bring in support, because like the support I've had has actually been quite gross. I will do another video about that, of like false support systems, silent supporters. I'll do a video next about that, because it needs to be talked about. So when you feel the frustration come up, I want you to take a look at it and say, am I doing something from the past? Am I working to like on the wrong thing? You know, the idea is to balance your life out, to get support. And if that means that you need to make money so you can pay someone to do some, to help you, to delegate, that's what that means. Okay, so it's not necessarily you doing all the work. Okay, and remember, like, what got you depleted in the first place was you were doing too much too soon and too often, and like, you got to get that rest in there. So even though like I pulled some muscles when I was carrying these heavy crazy doors, and I was doing these jobs that like I could feel it all up in here and stuff, like I took the time to use my TENS machines. I took my time to do the heating pad, and you know, and I'm taking the magnesium for that, to loosen, to soften my muscles, right? So like, I have to take care of myself. I have no choice. And that's what this frustration is showing you. It's like a revision process, that you're not doing things wrong. You just have to revise. It's okay. This is the next step. You got to make a change. You got to do something different. You got to do it. Okay, that's not, you know, keep it moving. We got to keep it moving, but it's in a way that you're not going to fall back into the freeze, and that you can move forward into the movement, and that you're able to balance things. And like, what you learn later is when you look back. And like I said, there are times when I couldn't do renos without having a light beer to make it feel fun. I had to reward myself with a large double coffee, usually 3 to 4 of them throughout the day of the renovation that I'm doing, that I'm working on, whether it be in the garden or the house. I would eat junk food. I would probably order something like pizza and Caesar salad and garlic bread. What else? I would eat donuts, chocolate, you know, ice cream. Like, I would reward myself with these things because I was overworking. So like, you know what I mean? It was like, and the whole process was depleting me. And so I have to learn how to be better, because I couldn't, that was not sustainable. So like, this happened, some of these things have to happen for a reason. I don't have to take those people back. I don't need to sit here and, you know, I'm moving into my future, and I'm doing it different, and that means also with different people. So that frustration, in the beginning, when I first experienced it, there was a lot of blame, because I felt like the people in my life had really fucked with my life and my finances, and they had. But part of it also is like, this is teaching me how to be better with my money. When I lacked money, when I was like concerned about my money, it got me learning how to make, like, how to be better with my money. So like, when I didn't have the money, I couldn't buy the junk food. You know, when I didn't have the money, I can't do the renos. When I don't have the money, I can't buy plants that I shouldn't be buying. You know, so like, part of that was actually quite helpful for me to not have the money, because it forced me to do something different. And it sucks that it took me that much. I'm quite stubborn, but I'm also pretty resilient. So there's things where it really helps you look at, but you have to be able to look at it. If I would have just stayed, here's the thing, if you just stay in the frustration and you just blame other people, and then you feel the need to like do things to try to make them feel bad, or try to make them feel like, I'll show you, you're moving away from the blessing. You know, if I just get back up and say, I'm going to prove them I'm valuable, and I rush through the grieving process, then you're just going to get back to right where you were, and you're going to be betrayed, backstabbed, and back in that old environment that you came from. The idea is we're trying to get out of that, so we want to move away from that. And there are times in the beginning where I jump right back into it. I want to prove to these people, this is in the Freudenberg knock environment, I want to prove to them that they didn't get the best of me, that I could handle this, that I could tolerate, you know, this bully, this crazy it was crazy. Like, when I look back, this environment was crazy, and these people are such garbage. I would never, even if some of them didn't like they're all part of it, right? So like, even if you didn't talk shit, they all talk shit, but like, nobody came to help me. So like, if you're not, you know what, like, I was friends with these people, I was friendly with these people, and the fact that they could just take someone's side so easily, you know, that's wild to me. But like I said, it showed me how to find out who was for me, who was not. And then I also learned, like, I would get caught in that blaming them, like, and being angry with them, and I had to push past the grieving period into vulnerability, you know, to like, so I was resentful, I was blaming, right? That frustration first starts with that blaming and resentment. But when you push past that and you allow yourself to become vulnerable, and you allow yourself to take a break and take a rest and say, you know what, that fucking hurt. And it's not necessarily the person who did it, it's the fact that another human can treat another human that way when they have all these, they have tons more resources, they have tons more, like they targeted somebody in a vulnerable spot. That's what they did. They knew you were vulnerable and they did that, and that is a gross human being. And so I just had to get past that point of recognizing who they were and who I wasn't. And I am not like them and they are not like me. And that's what that's what this frustration helps you work your way through that. But you got to get to this other side of the blessing. You have to be able to recognize it as a blessing. I'm glad I'm not friendly with those people. I regret giving to them, and maybe I don't even, yeah, I regret giving to them. That's really gross energy. And I lack confidence, and by experiencing those people, it showed me who I really am and how valuable I am, how experienced in life I am, how grown I am, how mature I am. And like, while I still have areas to work on, I am a good person, and these people are not. These are not good people. And I used to put myself onto other people, and I used to say, well, they're just learning, or maybe they don't know any better, or hurt people. And I no longer do that. These people are not for me. I don't have any intentions of reconnecting with them for any reason whatsoever. I don't give a shit who you are. These people are of my past, and I will no longer reconnect with them. I don't care who they are, And so there's, I had to create boundaries with people in order to create discipline within myself. Boundaries with other people are saying, I won't tolerate this, but then also holding your ground and leaving when they, this isn't just like asking permission. Boundaries aren't asking for permission. They're stating, you know what, I'm not going to tolerate this. And then I left. And I feel good because there are times as a child I could not leave these environments, and like all these emotions are coming up from that, and it's helping me to work through it. So part of the frustration, it's actually there for you, and you just have to learn how to work with it and grieve what you didn't receive when you're younger, and then now give it to yourself as an adult. And that is a challenge. I'm telling you, it's hard as fuck. Let me tell you, it is worth it, but it was hard. It is hard. I'm still doing it. I still fall. I still get frustrated. And so, like I said, I just have to try to push myself through the process and recognize where I'm hurting. I'm feeling like this is hard, admitting that this is hard. Those kind of things, those vulnerable admissions in the grieving. I allow myself to lash out. I allow myself to say, I hate these people. I allow myself to feel the emotions that I never got to as a child, or even in these environments. Like I never got to speak my truth to these people. I felt like I had to be civil because I needed the money, and so like if I were to see these people on the street, I don't think they would come across me because they're not going to get the friendly face that they once did. And to be honest, I have seen one of them in public, and they ran. They exited the building that I was in, and they're cowards. They're very cowardly. And that's why they have to stick together. And the thing is like, while you're frustrated, acknowledge like that, you know what, part of the grieving process of this is like, yeah, it sucks because they fucked with your life. But you're going to get so much out of this, and they're going to stay the same. And the thing is, if they ever want to follow you, the karma is that they're going to have to walk the same gauntlet that you did. They're going to, if they, want to move and they want to do different, you don't think that whole herd is going to sense that movement, when they start to up, and they're going to have to do the same thing. And it's unfortunate because you could have done it together. Groups and numbers are good, but like they didn't want to do that. And it's unfortunate. And I'm not saying they deserve it. It's just part of what you got to experience. And it's unfortunate, but like, I there's people I will not take back. There's some things you can just not come back from. And when I needed support, nobody was there. And so while I'm growing, I'm experiencing this frustration, but I'm also growing and becoming more confident and realizing I never needed these people in the first place. They needed me. And so without me in the room, you can imagine like they're just miserable. You were the light. You were the positive one. You're the one who like you helped make any sort of happy change with them. And now they're gonna have to figure out for themselves, which is fine. But like I don't feel like, when I share this information, is I want people to learn, because I want them to, if I can share something that hopefully helps, give some sort of insight. So, you know what I mean? So you can say, oh, that's what I'm experiencing. That's what I need to look for. Okay, that's, when I go through this, okay. So part of the thing with frustration as well is like there are times when Like, okay, so like I would feel pressed because the lawn, when I was depressed, I have a lot of lawn to cut and I fucking hate cutting the lawn. And while it's great for exercise, it's not great when you're burnt out, right? To cut the lawn and when you're already feeling exhausted. And so there were times when I'd leave it too long and I would start cutting the grass and it would stick underneath the lawnmower because I'm not maintaining the lawnmower. I'm exhausted. I can barely keep myself alive right now, let alone like maintain anything in my house. And that's the thing. These people knew that, and they still like when people like have like a death in the family, like they send casseroles. They say how are you? Like I just didn't have anyone checking up. When I was commenting on my depression on Facebook, nobody was reaching out, and nobody was like saying, hey, you sound like you are struggling and I'm going to be over there in 20 minutes. And it's like, why? Because those people were not my friends. I didn't trust them. I don't trust them. They, even my best friend of 17 years, like she would give my information. She'd use my information to talk like as conversation pieces for people that she knew or was just meeting. Like it was like entertaining. And it's just like my personal information that I'm talking to you about is not meant to be used for you to have like a discussion topic. Like go get a fucking hobby, girl. Like that's so like disgusting. That's my personal, I confided in you with personal information. I've had a number of women do this to me where I confide my personal information about my body or other things or just what I'm feeling. And they will literally share it just to like talk shit about me. Like they were never for me. These were people that were never for me. And so, yeah, it's just you get to a point where you recognize that's who they were. And so like the vulnerability is helpful, but then once you get past that vulnerability, you start to see them for their true colors. And I had to go through this process a number of times until I finally got to the other side of like, I don't have friends right now. And I'm okay with that because the people that were in my life, none of them, they were like, they weren't supportive, and they just weren't supportive, for the right reasons. And so grieving that and experiencing that, and like also so once I got to the vulnerable period, I had to get to the pissed off period, because you know what, once you actually realize you can see people for their true colors, now it's actually gross. And I would fluctuate between feeling bad and then like pissed off, bad and pissed off. So now I'm just pissed off. And now I don't want to help anybody. And now I'm not going back there. And there are times when I don't feel like I want to be in service because I'm pissed off at these people. And so I have to give myself time to work my way through that and realize like not everybody is like these people. It's just been my echo chamber. Like this is what I was raised to and trained to be like, I was raised to give out of guilt. I was raised to give to others more than myself. That's gross, So I'm going to do another video about, but like just experiencing that frustration is actually happening for you. Don't stop in the blame. Don't stop in that. Experience the pain. Acknowledge what you're feeling. Say it out loud. I find saying things out loud is such, like, get it out. Get one of those yell jars, those scream jars. Get a good pillow that you can really, because like honestly, I feel like it's hard to express, because when I want to scream, I'm like, I feel like the neighbors can hear me. And it's just not something I really want everyone else to hear. I feel like I've lacked a lot of privacy in my life. And while I love sharing private things to help other people, there are moments where I choose, I want privacy, like my yard. I want privacy in my yard and I don't have it. I choose where I want privacy, and you know what? There's people that drive by my home. I know they're doing it. I know they're watching my YouTube channel. I know they drive by my home. And the fact that they can't see how like odd that is, that's stalker. That's a stalker behavior. That's inappropriate to be driving by someone else's house to get information based on that person when they're refusing to share information with you. Like to get a checkup on someone to see like how they're doing in life. That's such a weird, like if that person's not giving you that information, you should not be driving by their home. And while it's a free country, that is inappropriate. And that's just what you experience, is these people are doing all that stuff. And I just got to the point where I'm just kind of over it. And I just, I've closed the cycle where I'm no longer taking these fuckers back. So that's part of the frustration. That has been part of the grieving, part of the learning. You get a real sense of self and self-love. And so that's what has helped for me. I'm going to continue this because I have some other stuff I'm going to touch on, is who is supportive of you and who is not, and then also the difference between doing something for the wrong reason and the right reason, meaning self-love. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for those future videos that are coming up. I'm going to do some other things too, just to maybe break down what I've said here if it's helpful. If you have any questions, be sure to ask, and I'd love to answer them. Yeah, so I will see you in the next one. Thank you for your support. Please like, please comment to get this in the algorithm. That would be really helpful. Even if you just share it to your own cell phone number, it shows that it's being shared. I could really use some help getting this out there to the people that need to hear it in order for us all to heal and elevate and leave these fuckers behind, because honestly, they're not the same as we are. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.